Hi everybody, and welcome to this Thursday's Art Forum. Nice to have a little bit more breathing room than we previously had. But before I introduce our speaker today, I just wanted to remind you of a couple of things. This Friday, Robert Guth, many of you will know Robert, who's been doing his PhD in photography and media arts, will be concluding his ongoing Art is and Bread project, where he will be conducting an auction at the Contemporary Art Space in Gorman House of the loaves of bread that he's baked and exchanged over years for objects. So this is a sort of auction, I think, of the objects that have been exchanged for bread over time, and it's the culmination of his PhD project, isn't it?
Yeah, he's being examined tomorrow.
He's being examined tomorrow, but the great attraction, apart from anything else, will be the free food that goes with the silent auction. Kangaroo doner kebab, he says, and fresh donuts, exclamation mark. So clearly an event not to be missed. Next week, on Wednesday, Robin White, the distinguished artist from New Zealand, will be speaking. Now, Robin would be a person not to be missed. Apart from anything else, I think she will speak about her experience of living on Kiribati, the little coral atoll island in the Pacific, which is now really confronting the reality of climate change. It's right on the frontier of climate change in terms of the way in which all of those little islands are being drowned in the Pacific. So she'll be speaking on Wednesday, and then in the evening, John Lewis's exhibition of portraits from the edge, as he calls it, Putting a Face to Climate Change, which is a project that he undertook in Kiribati, will open in the gallery at 6 o'clock. So a double event not to be missed. But it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Nida Bangash. Nida comes from a very interesting mixed heritage. She's a Pakistani and Iranian heritage, both of which have very rich histories of miniature painting. And it is, in fact, Nida's task here at the school to run a series of miniature painting workshops. And when I hear that, I always think, damn it, I am really at the wrong end of the corridor. I wish I was doing that myself.
I think you should ask the students.
Yeah. But so many of you here today will already know Nida through the unalloyed pleasure of her miniature painting workshops. But for those of you who haven't met her yet, she's exhibited her work both nationally and internationally, and her work draws on the miniature painting as a kind of source and framework for her practice. And I've noticed, looking at your CV, that you have a kind of relationship with the UK too. You've worked and studied there as well, haven't you? So Nida, thank you very much indeed for agreeing to talk today. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Where should I start? From the very beginning. I was born in 1984, 11th of May. But no, I won't start from there. I must admit that I'm a little stressed and nervous, but I hope it all goes well. Anyways, I'm trained as a miniature artist at the National College of Arts, Lahore, where I completed my undergrad in 2006, majored in miniature painting, and that's part of my degree show in 2006. And then I went on and I did my master's in visual arts, and that's how my work is usually interdisciplinary. I work with videos, and I work with sound, and I work with painting and projection on videos, performance, and anything and everything, basically. So this is basically the work that I did for my undergrad. It is a scroll painting and mainly illustrative, and it was called Eternal Recurrence, but it was Nietzsche's idea of just how things repeat in a cycle. And And I worked with, obviously being a mixed being from a mixed parental background, I looked into Persepolis as, one of the celebration complexes in Iran 3,000 years back during the Darius and during the Zoroastrian time. And I just picked that up and then just looked at how Alexander the Great burned it because he was drunk, and then how it's happening again. And I made kind of George Bush and a mixture of George Bush and Mr. Spock, and kind of did that little mixture. And in this, it was an interesting, yes, I did a lot of figurative work, but what I most enjoyed was the pattern that I constructed with helis and guns and bullets. I created that pattern, so that kicked off to a journey at the MA Honors Visual Arts at NCA. And I started looking at patterns and illuminations more closely. So I went into all these museums and saw all those beautiful, very old manuscripts and Qurans where the illumination or the pattern was just that red dot, just used as a full stop. So I used sealing wax, and I used gold, and I just stamped them with the back of a bullet. And I was kind of looking at the relationship between the text and the pattern, and how the pattern can be seen in various ways. And I kind of kicked off by layering all the images together. And miniature painting gives me that edge of layering a lot of work, be it videos, be it sound, be it painting, be it performances. It's mainly layered, and you can almost see all the layers through all the layers. So these are just some drawings, and just filtering and just going through them. These are some of more drawings, and in this series I just looked at patterns and how illuminations and patterns, essentially a flat art form. I just wanted to make it 3D. I just wanted to bring it out of the surface. Although miniature being wants to be true to the surface of the paper, it wants to be flat. It doesn't want to give an illusion of 3D. There's no idea of light in it. But I just wanted to, I think I was just consciously trying to deconstruct and dig into the practice more. And it says my art practice grew out of my engagement with miniature painting, and it reinforces how I built my image layer by layer. It also provides me the arena in which I work out solutions to my aesthetic problems. Well, that deconstruction and that digging into the work, digging into pattern, basically took me into this beautiful journey of units and how units work, and mainly in all the classical art forms. It's the unit that binds it together. You talk about dance, it's one unit repeated again and again, and turn into a loop, forms an art form. Calligraphy, from a dot, it extends. Pattern, from one bit, you just repeat it again. Music, tha, thinna, thi. It just goes. You repeat that one beat again and again and form. So it's the one unit that just unites all the art forms. And even in miniature, you repeat one stroke and you just have a world inside it. So I just accidentally cut one of my patterns and it looked like a paper plane. So I just consciously cut it more. And from the flatness, that's a 3D, and that's a draw. Like I drew that, the second one, and then it's rendered 3D. So it's almost like a narrative that my journey from the flat lines to the actual 3D structure. And then I did part of the practice of MA Honors Visual Arts was to work with a traditional art form. So I chose carpet weaving, and I went to Iran and I did carpet weaving. And that's how I saw a lot of, obviously there's so many lines that can join carpet weaving and miniature painting and pattern and illumination together. The one thing that I explored here, which was interesting for me, was the grid and the meticulousness of the grid. I found carpet weaving the most extraordinary, hard experience I could ever do, because you just had to go by the grid, one left, one right. the next should be yellow, the next should be blue, the next should be... So you have to go by the grid. And I kind of got a bit frustrated with that. And when I wanted to translate that and bring that into my practice, I just drew the grid first, and then I kind of dispersed it. I didn't want to go. I had a structure. I had a grid, the warps and the webs, but I just wanted to stain wherever I wanted to, and it would usually not make any image. These are, again, these drawings that I did just to get to a point. And then this was an installation called Ripple, and I was looking at how miniature painting on the floor, basically, just where the carpets are meant to be, and the sanctity of the floor, because miniature has always had a very one-to-one experience. Miniature was the art of the books, so it was always one-on-one. It's only after the British rule that paper was torn out of the book and was framed and put it up. So that distance, I just wanted to cut that distance, maybe experience it on the floor. So I grinded the wooden floor, and I made this little jigsaw puzzle-y thing, and I just wanted to walk through it and get to the center. And then again, the carpet weaving experience, and then the camouflage, the 3D, the flatness of the surface, and the 3D paper plane. Just experimenting with different things and trying to see how pattern can conceal and camouflage a 3D surface. And this was a corner painting, I think, and this kind of saturates that 1 year of experience of carpet weaving. It just joins in the corner, and you start from one end, which is the pencil drawing, and then you see the patterns of the carpet being formed, pixelated into a grid, and then just the stains that are formed. So on the one hand, you would see this crisp pattern, and on the other hand, you would see the same colors, but all the grids and all the colors just merging into each other. And yeah, by this time, I suppose, I was pretty much, because I was continuously working, and these are a very selection of the work. So I was quite frustrated with what I was doing, and I just wanted to make something small and make something 3D and make something, just get back to my own genre. I always work with different sizes. It's only that when I work big, I just want to work small, and when I work small, I want to work big, and it always just mix, it's always just random. And this is a public art intervention that I did in Pakistan during when the judicial system was kind of collapsing, and they fired this Chief Justice. And me and some of my friends just sneaked out at night, and this was part of the Wasl residency that we did in Lahore. Wasl is an organization in Karachi that brings in different artists together. So we just spray painted that, and this was the route that connected NCA, National College of Arts, where I was studying, and the Punjab University. And I just noticed how aloof we are as students and as young generation. We just don't care. Although every Tuesday, the lawyers used to have a movement, and huge groups of lawyers just used to walk in as a protest and we just didn't care. So I just wrote that, and it created a huge drama, and it was all over the news, and that Pakistan, the name Pakistan has been written on the floor. So they immediately cleaned it after a week. But this is what we did, and I think this led to during the same time, it led to many other artists doing spray paints on the floor, in the same line where the rallies used to go. And this is another performance art we did with a visiting artist, Qasim Raza Shaheen, from London. It was called Dropping Tears Together, and it was interesting because we were all just dropping tears together. And we were chopping onions. We were all in chopping onions and crying, basically. And it was interesting because we were just working in an under-construction gallery space, and we just let everything be. There was plaster on the floor. Everything was there. We just created a very mechanical system in there. We just had 5 plinths. We were all standing. We were all wearing gents' shalwar kameez. And we all had mobiles in our pocket. And the only way we were communicating with each other was through mobiles. We would call each other and say, in the alphabets of, in the world of 26 letters, tell me the first story of the first N in your mobile. So we would take out that was on the phone. We would take out our phone. We would go through the first N, let's say it's Nida. Without revealing the identity of the person, we would just tell a story, just anything, you know. So it was quite interesting in that way. And then and it was very one-on-one. We had 3 audience at one time, and the 3 would leave, and then the next 3. And then there were onions under that chair. So we would just go pick the onions, walk back and chop and just narrate stories. And then these punchlines were there when we were just, and at times there were just 15, 16 minutes of silence and just chopping. Tuck, 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 tuck. And obviously, and we had a lot of eyeliner. So we had it all on our face. And this went on for 3 hours. And eventually we had heaps of onion just there. And many, many stories. And we were very, very tired. Anyhow, that happened. And this is the video. 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. So this was basically one of, I tried to kind of unite my art practice with the dance beat, which is obviously music, and it is for dance. It's a tihai, it's a three beat, basically 3 beat repetition, and the title was Stone Paper Scissor. So it was almost like you attempt to differentiate between them, but every attempt just is useless because every time you had a scissor on screen, a stone, or a paper, because they all stem out of each other and they're part of the same tree. So I was just looking at how different they are and yet how similar they are, and they're just bound by, it's the same, looking at the unit and looking at how they kind of unify each other under the same ground. This was a video. It's called Keep This Game Out of Reach of Adults. And it was commissioned by Moti Roti. And we had 20 artists from Pakistan, 20 from India, and 20 from London. And we had to work on identity. Yeah. So I used the 60 seconds as 60 years of Pakistan-India relationship. And there was these two kids making this wall of camouflage in 1 minute, like that 60 seconds, 60 years. And they were identical. They were wearing the same thing. They had the same skin tone. They were just creating this wall. And it was just a little take on this division that we've made. Anyway, this is my degree show. Right after that, I did the pattern thing, and I was just looking into the videos and everything. it was a bit hard for me, this degree show, because it was very close to me. I lost my father during this, when I was making, I had 3 months to make a body of work, 4 months. And my father was killed by Taliban in Pakistan. So the way I looked at my work and the way I looked at the pattern completely changed. And I couldn't just draw those pretty things, and I couldn't just relate to my quest for just looking at deconstructing and understanding my practice, and I wanted to bring it into a context and work on it. So this was this is an installation shot. I had 4x5 painting on the floor, and it had a projection on it on the top, and then I had memory boxes, I think 8 memory boxes, a light box there, and then a little video on an iPod, a little small video on an iPod right opposite to the memory boxes wall. And the newspaper under that light box, my father was a surgeon, so he had this X-ray machine viewing thing, the light. So I used that. And underneath this handmade paper with this, you can't see in the image, but there's a silhouette of glasses right on the edge of it. And it was very concealed. It was almost like you could see. It was 13th of August, 2008, and 14th of August is the Independence Day of Pakistan. So, and you could see the dates, you could see the newspaper, and it was the newspaper on my father's desk. And it was shot in his head, so it was stained with a lot of blood. So I concealed that. And on this newspaper, it was this image of this lady with the glasses, and she was stitching the flag of Pakistan. So I used that newspaper, and I think all my aggression of just came out in this one piece. The rest of them are relatively subtle. Anyways, I just covered it, concealed it with the image of my father's glasses that he was wearing, which broke, obviously, when he fell. So all this information has just been concealed, but yet you can see the reality coming through it. And this was the box. This box was almost the same size as a grave. It was, I had a Vasli. On top, Vasli is this paper that we use in miniature painting, we stick 4 layers of sheets together to make it hard. I just drew all these carpet patterns throughout the paper, and I painted a splash of red paint on it. And then there was a video going on top of that. The video was 1 minute long. For 60 seconds, you could see the empty bed of flowers, and then for after 60 seconds and the rest of the 30 seconds, you could see this chair appearing, taking a half circle and disappearing. And when it disappeared, you could see the stain. And this was my father's chair, and I just worked with that. Yeah, so this was just, they worked together. And these were the memory boxes. And I had my father's objects in it, just daily objects. And I really tried hard in this case to make these objects everybody's objects. You know, anyone can have a pair of glasses and a radio and a shoe and a pipe and a watch, and just that companionship, a cup being there and just one cup missing. Anyhow, the tactile representation of pattern can communicate a subtle yet overwhelming story by the way it is constructed and rendered. The idea solidified for me when I explored the visual expression of the notion of loss, erasure, impermanence, and absence. Through an interdisciplinary approach, I've tried to create an overall sensory experience for an audience, thus enabling them to rediscover the obvious. And these boxes were closed, and you would just come in paper boxes. You would open them and just close them back. And this is what I did after the graduation. I was just exploring with the patterns, and this is just one pattern, just rendered in a different way. was called Flowery Language. I collaborated with Usman Said, and he made 3 other diptychs. And just exploring patterns, just exploring how they react and how they work. This is the work that I made with a series of passport-size photographs of my mother and my father. And I kind of make them all very generic. I made this portrait, and to that portrait, whatever accessories you put in, it takes the identity. The idiosyncrasies involved in a passport photograph regarding gender, age, nostalgia, resemblance, and preciousness of the identities embraced in one's passport build a narrative around a character which becomes inseparable from the image. A portrait devoid of all these characters not only questions the existence of all these concerns, but to me, these generic portraits break the sanctity of individuality. Underlying these paintings, representations of manipulated photographs is a narration that talks about the metamorphosis of that doesn't deal with evolution. On the contrary, it dehumanizes the being. So I was just looking at how okay it is in Pakistan these days to just have a strip around the news and say 650 people died in a bomb blast and 340 people died in an earthquake. And those 340 people are just numbers. They're not individuals anymore. And that was an interesting experience that now I have in Australia, that every life has a value. Every life is precious. Even a kangaroo is very precious, you know. But people over there just die. And not that everybody is just in a state of panic. No, I'm not saying that. But every family has a story, for sure. Every family has been affected in one way or the other. And the series up there is called The Ultimate Guide for Healthier and Less Toxic Living. And in that, I just had these these passport-size photographs, and I just embossed the ID cards on it, and then I stuck these passport photographs on it. And then it was a bit, there's a little take on gender in this one, because the habitat of the female is the habitat of the male, and there's no directions for how to use that men bit, but there are directions for use when it comes to the female bit. And I kind of packaged them, you know, just picked up punchlines from these packaging, you know, habitat, directions for use, and title and name, and, you know, they were all just these specimens that I was observing, and these little, that's how the work developed. And these are, again, a series of photographs that I found, and I just read this one line that said, I love photographs because even if the people in them change, they never do. So I try to just change the photographs and just pick people up from it. A photograph is a moment, a split second, captured with a click, and the beauty of it is that it never changes. Looking at these generic portrait as a departure point, I translated this beauty into ironic reality of loss, impermanence, erasure, and human absence, substituted by pattern. This metamorphic conversion of human form is just a subtle reminder of rediscovering the obvious. Drawing my inspiration from family and studio photographs, this body of work investigates the horror of reality and the erasure of human sentiments. And then this is, again, like, I made 16, I think, 16 of them, and they all look alike. And they all have attested right on their face, because whenever we attest a photograph, I don't know, it's really funny how we just stamp things on the face, and it's just there, and somebody has to attest that this is my photograph, usually a government officer. So just a little take on that, and it almost looked like arrested, that text. Anyways, there's text over here that you can read. Just reducing the sanctity of human down to numbers. And they all look alike, and these were just in a gallery, and they were just in two of them together and 3 of them somewhere, and they were just meant to be just seeping between everybody's work. Like they were part of a group show. This is the work that I did last year in Madagascar. And I traveled to Madagascar for 3 months, and I painted on envelopes, painted little stamps on envelopes, and wrote some letters with it. And the decision of just using stamps, painting stamps on envelopes was purely related to the traveling that I was doing at that time. And I was drawing lines between, because Madagascar was French colonized, and me being English colonized I was just drawing those lines, and the difference between the skin color and just that the skin color, race. I mean, this body of work really just talks about almost everything. And I took a punchline: follow the lead of your host. Bon appetit. This is the first rule of French dining, and they don't follow the lead of the host when they walk in as colonizers. So every stamp that I made, I just stamped it with follow the lead of your host, bon appetit. And then these were the actual stamps of Madagascar. So they're just creating a narrative. They just have a dialogue. And the letters say, if you don't go to bed, the pale skin will come and get you. And I mean, this was actually a phrase used by Malagasi's. You know, they put their kids to sleep because they think that pale skinned are just very scary. And then one of it says, I think the English were better colonizers than French. As ridiculous as it sounds, the kid is showing his butt. So, whatever. And then these were followed by a series of photographs that I did, and I changed them into these stamp sheets. They all have punched holes, so they're actually stamp sheets. And these are the photographs that I just did in Madagascar. And this is where I work now, with Elmo. I work as a photographer for Sesame Street's local version, Sim Sim Hamara in Pakistan. And so we have Elmo on board, and we're making our own puppets, local puppets. And it's a collaboration. It's a USA project, and it's a collaboration between Rafi Pir Theatre Workshop, who owns a huge puppet museum, and Sesame Street. So this is where I work now, which is relatively happier and less boring than what I do. I think that's it. End of story. Clapping.
That was fantastic, Nida. It was a beautiful trajectory through your work, and I couldn't help thinking what a sympathetic pair you and Fiona Hall made with each other, because at the basis of it is this incredible respect for and focused attention to discriminating making processes and crafting. Mm-hmm. And some of the themes in your works make a beautiful conversation together. Mm-hmm. So
I enjoyed
it was not entirely intended to put you together, but I'm very glad that we did in the same way. Let me open the floor now to questions.
Easy questions.
Can I just pick up on the craft bit? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that students who have been in the workshops with you will have understood Vasli, but I was really struck by the sizes of some of your Vaslis. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I work with usually I work with different sizes of Vaslis, and I try to make them myself because I enjoy the process of making work more than I maybe enjoy displaying work, you know. So I do that myself because that almost makes me connected to it right from the very beginning. And yes, it's a lot of hard work. You're almost drenched in glue by the end of making, and there's a lot of trials and errors. But we have a paper making machine called Murtaza. He's the man. And at NCA, we call him Paper Factory. He makes it. So we can get it from there also. And at times I do get it, but I never end up using it because I pay a lot for it, and I'm just too scared to work on it. That, oh my God, if I go wrong. So I just keep it for a nice sunny day, and I make it myself, and it's freer for me to work on it.
I was just wondering if you could touch on your carpet weaving experience in Iran. Like, what kind of weaving did you undertake?
Well, I did the knot weaving, and I worked in Mashhad with an ustad for 3 months, and we practiced things like dyeing, from dyeing the wool to making it, and to understanding that grid, and just following the grid. And I made a tiny little carpet, and it was Mashhadi carpet because the teacher that I had belonged to Mashhad. So that's what I did, and I digged in a little bit into the history of carpet weaving, and I went to the outskirts of Mashhad, which was really interesting for me because there I saw a connection between all the visuals and all the art forms, because they sing their patterns. They go like one red from here and the other red from there, and then and then there are students working there, and they don't have any clue what they're doing because they can't read the pattern. It's only that you get to a higher level, you can then read the grid and translate that grid into. So those stars would sit there and sing, and one kid there, and one, because it's usually a mirror image, would just put knots. So it was interesting, but I never touched it again because I found it very, very hard, very, very time consuming. Because the more you put knots, and it just goes down, and you're like, go up, go up, no. And there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to it. You just have to put zillions of knots or something.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, no, just a simple one. What's wasli? The paper that you use?
Wasli is the term that basically it means wasl. It's made from 2 words. Wasl and wasls mean union. So, but what we do is that we unite 4 layers of paper together. We did that. We just make a flour glue. We just add water and glue, and we cook it together, and that makes very gluey and lacy. And there's a technique of just bustling all those papers together, just uniting all of them. And that's basically used because we want the paper thicker, we want it to be more absorbent, and we want it to be, because if we work in gouache, we can't afford the paper to be flimsy because that can crack the paint. And if you're working with watercolor, we don't want the paper to buckle. So we do that to make it straight and firm.
Nida, you were saying just now how it's the process that you enjoy the most, and I wonder if you'd just talk a little about that, about the kind of immersive process that you engage in, and maybe touch it, because I think you also referred to the relation between kind of pattern and its potential to generate narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk a bit about those things?
Well, the process that I specifically talked about, I wasted all the time that we had, but was this process that I went through in the MA program. And I knew, I was sure that I want to work on patterns for the given time, and I want to explore more. And it's almost like one door kicked into the other, and kicked into the other, where essentially I was working on patterns, but it just kicked into videos, kicked into performances, kicked into this and that. So the process is very important for me, because as I'm doing a performance, and then I go back to making paper and doing that hardcore, meticulous thing, I eat from that. It's almost like it nourishes me and makes me look into the work in a different way. I mean, the degree show was I think there was no performative thing happening literally, but it was a performance. Because I darkened the whole space. The whole place was literally dark with a few spotlights only, And then there was this light and the chair and the pattern dancing in the center. And then you had these mute audience, very slow, in the form of paper boxes. And you had somebody jarring over there, screaming in the form of that newspaper. So it's almost like I look into the work then, in terms of installation, in terms of making it, in terms of the experience. It's, the process is just like that. And what was your second question?
Oh, well, I think you kind of answered it, but yeah, it was just about that sense in which narrative, can emerge out of pattern, you know, which is not the way we normally think about that.
No, there definitely is a narrative in pattern because, I mean, that's an abstract form. Making illumination, making those beautiful manuscripts and those books are very abstract, you know. The pattern is essentially, an illumination is essentially abstract form, but it's a very different kind of abstraction than what we see in the West. You know, it's A flat, B. There is a lot of symbolism in it, you know. There's a symbol to a lotus flower. There's a symbol to how it's stylized, the bud and blah and blah, you know. So yeah, and then the colors, and then, you know, the layers and everything in it. You know, a pattern a pattern can just narrate hundreds and thousands of stories. It's just the way it's rendered, which I just clearly showed you. You know, I had this stain, and I had this, and it was just rendered in it. It's the same pattern. And you know, the flowery language one, it was one pattern. It was just rendered in a different way. This one, the one at the bottom, where did it go? Hello? Yeah, the one, it's one pattern. It's just that it's rendered in a different way. And I think the three of them are just narrating three different stories. You know? So for me, pattern is narrative.
You had your hand up. I thought I saw one over there. No, you with the red jumper on? No? Okay. Shine?
Dance.
Yes.
You clearly learned Kathak.
No.
No.
I didn't have the chance to. I would really want to, but
The way you move, it seems to me that there's a very close relationship between music, performing arts,
of course.
and your elaboration on pattern.
Of course. I mean, I do dance, but I think I dance with a brush. And it's different, you know, because I always work with music. I cannot work without it. And there's a kind of music that I listen to. And I closely look at, I have many friends who are dancers. And I always just draw in energy from there. But yeah, I mean, calligraphy and painting, be it miniature painting, be it anything, I think they're a form of dance. It's how your brush dances on the paper. So I think I know a form of dance, but not Kathak.
You might also mention the show on Friday.
Yes, I have the envelopes and the letters that I showed you. I have a show on Friday, which is tomorrow. Tomorrow. Yay! I have a show tomorrow at Balkonen Art Center. Is that right? And there basically is 8 of these letters and envelopes, and they're diptychs, and it's just.
What time?
It is 6 o'clock. The opening is at 6,
I
and
think there's some musical performances.
yes, there are musical performances, and there are 5 more artists showing with me. Mikhail Dixon is one of them, and then we have 4 more. So
So it will be a busy day tomorrow evening.
Yeah, because we have to do the Robert thing.
That's right. We have to go a bit at the silent auction, rush across to Belconnen,
yes.
come back and see whether we got our object. Well, if that's the last question for Nida, I want to thank you very much. It was a very intelligent and thoughtful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks a lot for coming.